talk about is they're so practiced, they can almost be clockwork sometimes, that you can almost say they're going to do this, then they're going to do this, then they're going to do this, against a very cerebral, Ardent team. How is that going to play out? They're certainly going to know that sequence if there truly is one.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do if I was to play against GankStars Vega is I'm going to go down and camp their tri-bush at 3 minutes and 55 seconds, just before the gold miner is about to pop up. Just make sure I have all that vision in the jungle so that they can't rotate down as 3, walking in blind, face-checking bushes.
And GankStars is a team, they love objective control. They'll take it anytime they can get it. They don't care if there's 10 gold in it. They still want that objective control. They want that vision. They want the extra person for those fights in the miner himself. And a team that spends a lot of time rotating into lane and ganking lane, when we see a lot of the opposite happening in the matches that have come up so far with the rotations into jungle. GankStars Vega, they start off, no surprise, it's a Celeste ban with Jack being such a strong Celeste. What do you think about this?
Pretty much what they're trying to do is, with Jack actually being a very good Celeste, they're trying to negate the fact that Ardent's able to have a later scaling comp. So what they're going to try and do is pick up something strong early game, and then pretty much they're going to try and finish this game within like the 20-minute mark.
Okay, Ardent Axiom comes off with the Jewel. Hafu, this was your original hero before you got into Celeste. There's not going to be a Jewel today. What
Jewel
is that?
Jewel or Celeste.
Yeah, and those are your two.
Yeah, that's all I play.
What does that deny these teams taking those off the board?
Excuse me. I mean, there's a lot of stuns out of the game right there. And Jewel is really, really powerful early on. She definitely falls off in the late game. So it looks like Ardent just wants to control the early game.
All right, so we won't have to worry about that. GankStars first picking an Ardent. I mean, I know he is strong. He's probably the most popular roamer right now, but is that a surprise to see? If anything, you typically see a Fortress coming off first if you're going to first pick a roamer. Is this a surprise, Ron?
To be honest, right now it's looking as though Ardent is a roamer, but the thing that Vega may or may not do is select an Adagio next, accompanied by Saw. Recently in ranked match, we've been able to see how well they do just pushing turrets. Saw is pretty much like a walking turret by himself. His mobility may be very slow, but in terms of fighting, he just does his thing. His auto attacks are just crazy, and his damage output from Adagio's buff. So we'll see what they do for the next 2 picks. Hopefully nobody can hear what I'm talking about.
We're sure they can't, so hopefully that's true.
They see Adagio taken away.
And we know that Adagio is a hero that GankStars is very high on right now. Hafu, you were hearing in the pre-match interview that we did, they spoke very highly of where Adagio is in the meta right now.
Yeah, they were saying that Adagio can be played as a flex pick, in the jungle, in the lane, as a roam. So, yeah, I think that's a great pickup, especially to deny GankStars from that. From the Adagio.
All right, so that is taken away. And of course, we're seeing, we see a Rona come off the board and a Scarf come off the board, so maybe we will see Fuji in lane now. What does that comp do to the way that GankStars plays?
It actually works out with them really well. Fuji has a lot of experience playing Scarf, and he's probably one of the best Scarfs in NA. What we're going to see from GankStars Vega is old school and wreck trying to wreck as much of the jungle as they can. They're going to try and take Ardent's jungle duel to school. With Ardent being able to secure the last pick, right now I'm a little hesitant on who they're actually going to pick. Maybe a Glaive or... Yes,
all right.
We have a Glaive.
And what does that do for him?
Adagio is pretty much going to go one core support item, and then he's going to try and build some CP and able to buff his Koshka, buff his Glaive, and do as much damage as they can. They have a very strong early game comp, which tends to fall off later on because they have 2 melee. Hopefully they're able to control as much of the map in the early game as they can so that they scale off, win some objective fights, and secure early Kraken.
A lot of heroes that like to get in and tangle here. It's interesting, is there anyone who can actually keep this Rona off of the enemy carries? Does it fall on a Glaive to punch her away?
We have Glaive's Afterburn, Koshka's ult, and Adagio's ult. So it depends on how well they play, waiting to bait out Rona's skills. what you have to do against Rona is play around her instead of playing against her, because AoE-wise, she'll just dominate your whole team.
Okay, a very interesting match here. The number 3 seed GankStars Vega against the number 6 Ardent Axiom. Can Ardent break the streak so far today? Can the lower seed manage to pull this out? We know they have planned. They have drawn it up on the board. Will it play out the way that they hoped? We'll find out now with our new casting duo. It is Action Jackson and Vedius.
All right, guys, welcome back to the caster desk. We are going to be jumping into this game very shortly. I'm super excited for it. How are you feeling about this next match, Vedius?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty excited. It should be a really entertaining matchup. We have GankStars Vega going up against Ardent Axiom. Both these teams fighting for a spot in moving into the semifinals. Neither of them, well, I mean, the winner of this has to go up against Vaughn tomorrow. You know, neither team really wants that, but it's better to find out how you stand up against that level of play very early on into the tournament, because getting a win here and losing against potentially Vaughn tomorrow isn't all that bad, because you can at least get a good idea of where you are coming into the tournament.
That's very true. Certainly, this is going to be an interesting one. We are going to be getting onto the Halcyon Fold with the first game of this series between GankStars Vega and Ardent Axiom. I'm really looking forward to this one. Fuji heading straight up to this lane. He is going to be picking that scarf up. Like we heard earlier, he is one of the best players in NA on that hero.
Yeah, he certainly is. Fuji, very talented Scarf player. Sometimes you will see him playing in that jungle role, but with this Scarf being available and considering how talented he is on it, he's decided to move it up into the lane. So we are going to see Fuji playing up against Asus Persona. Asus Persona is an individual, also very talented laner, very well known throughout the NA scene. And this guy is very much about, I go in and you follow me. The team has to back him up, so we're going to have to keep a close eye on how well Ardent and Axiom work around this very aggressive playstyle that Asus is very well known for.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point. So far, not too much aggression actually coming out of Ardent, though. They haven't tried to make any super fast pushes into the enemy jungle. They're just playing it safe, playing it slow. And on the flip side, it looks like GSV are doing the similar kind of thing. All roaming down together to the shop early on here, though. Maybe going to pick up some items that can help them out in the early game.
Yeah, you can see Old School going for very early shields. She wants to be able to deal with the damage coming out from this Koshka. You know how strong Koshka is during the early game. They're predicting the possibility of an invade coming out from the side of Ardent Axiom, but right now it does look like both teams not really playing entirely aggressive. And as I say that, Whalmer actually looking for a little bit of an invade. Can't quite actually find the healing minion, and we could potentially see if he's been spotted out by a trap.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to get away with wandering around in the enemy jungle for too much longer with all of the vision that GSV have picked up for themselves. Right now, I think GankStars is doing a good job of just stopping Whalmer from gaining too much information. That said, they may have spotted them out moving by that bottom shop earlier on here. So I'm surprised that neither one of these teams is being too aggressive early on.
Yeah, it's rather surprising because GankStars as a team talked very much yesterday how they wanted to play aggressively. That is their natural play style. They want to get in your face, they want to get in your jungle, whereas Ardent Axiom are very calm, very calculated, much more about scaling up into the mid and late game and having an impact the longer the game goes on. And right now, Ardent Axiom are getting the playstyle that they want. They're putting a lot of scout traps down, they're controlling that vision, they know exactly where GankStars are hanging around, and GankStars are just playing exactly into their hand. But they may have caught Whalmer.
Yeah, Whalmer completely caught out here on the wrong side of the map right now. I don't think he has hope of getting out of this one. First kill picked up by GankStars Vega. Very nice response to the pushing into the jungle that was coming out of Ardent.
Yeah, that was a nice collapse coming out from GankStars. They recognized what was going on, immediately fell down onto Whalmer. He had no way of getting out of that situation. They were able to pick up the first blood. They're not really going to get many major objectives off the back of that, so GankStars aren't going to gain too much as Jack goes in.
Yeah, he might want to find a return kill to answer that earlier one onto Whalmer. Right now, he's splitting his focus a little bit between Rekt and Old School. And of course, with Fuji roaming down, that is going to be enough to encourage him to back off. That said, putting down that early harassment, showing a little bit of strength early on in the game here, I do think was a nice play. And they didn't lose any health to deal actually a substantial amount of damage to 2 members of GankStars.
Yeah, Jar Jar Jack pretty much just sending a message. He jumped in, he was being like, what are you trying to do? This is my half of the map. Displaying his early game dominance on this Koshka, really showing his proficiency on the champion, or hero even, and he's just doing a fantastic job so far. Really doing a good job of having the early game that Ardent Axiom really, really wants. They need to be a little bit careful though, because looking at the 2 compositions, even though they like to scale into the late game, I actually feel that GankStars do have a slightly better late game composition. With this Rona, the moment she completes that breaking point, as well as the Shiver Steel, she's going to be a massive threat to deal with, combined with this Ardent. So they need to be a little bit careful as the game progresses. As I say that, Jar Jar Jack maybe looking for a fight here. No, they're just looking to get a bit of deeper vision down, and GankStars is going to move into Ardent's jungle to try and respond to this aggression coming out from Ardent Axiom.
I like the response there by GankStars. They were actually in a similar position to what happened when Wailmer got caught earlier on, but they dealt with it very smartly and ran away very quick. Right now, Wailmer taking a lot of harassment already yet again. Wrecked and Old School are alone trying to run away while Fuji does the gold mine. It is going to go over to Ardent. Very nice pickup by him, and now the fight kicks off. Wailmer is going to fall, and the rest of GankStars want more. The Dragon's Breath comes out, but he's not able to land too significant of a slow. Ardent Axiom going to be able to limp on out of there, losing only the 1 member.
Not entirely sure why Aces decided to knock in Old School. He basically made it easy for Old School to get on top of Wailmer right there, and Wailmer had no way of getting out of that position. He's supposed to be on the background trying to provide utility, trying to help his team out, and by throwing a Rona onto your face, it's just going to make it easy for him to pick up that kill. So a little bit of mispositioning coming out of Ace's Persona, but that is going to extend the kill lead even further to GankStars Vega. And right now, we talked about this early aggression. Where was it? They are starting to pick things up as the game goes on.
Yeah, I mean, even though you can see the 2 kills picked up for GankStars, the gold lead isn't exactly significant yet. It's only about 400, so it's perfectly reasonable for Ardent Axiom to make some plays, start rolling this ball a little bit, but at the same time, GankStars, right now, they're going to be feeling really good, and this is something worth talking about, too. GankStars, I think the only team at this event who actually has former live experience playing in front of a crowd. That certainly could be something that's helping them out here. They're playing extremely smart so far. Yeah,
they're playing very well calculated, not getting into too many difficult situations, and it's very impressive to see what they've done so far. You know, speaking of these teams, let's have a look. Oh, hang on. Aces has found Fuji.
Yeah, he knocks him back, is only able to get a small amount of pressure down, just under about 50% of the Fuji's health. And that does make sense to me, the fact that Ace's Persona is able to get those kinds of trades. If you look at the creep score between the 2 of them, Ace's Persona is sitting at 70 compared to the 47 of Fuji. He's dominating that lane.
He certainly is, and he has actually just picked up that Fountain of Renewal, so looking to go for a little bit more sustain coming into these team fights will make it, make them have a little bit of an easier time as these fights kick off. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how these fights kick off, because between the 2 teams now, I still feel as though Ardent Axiom have the advantage. They're going to be the team looking for these fights, simply because GankStars do scale somewhat better as the game goes on. But we've already talked about how Ardent as a team are very passive. They don't look for these early game fights. So it's a little bit of a strange composition that both these teams going for, as Old School has found out Aces.
Yeah, he is taking a decent brunt of damage immediately, but he's so tanky at the moment that they can't put down a significant enough amount to actually try and secure a kill. Fuji is playing very far up right now, perhaps a little bit too far up. That's going to be the knockback. The Yummy Catnip Frenzy comes down. Hero killed for Ardent Axiom. They find their first of the match. That's got to feel great. They might look now to go for this gold mine. How are they going to leverage the advantage they just gained themselves?
Well, they have the numbers advantage now. They could look to play around this gold mine. I do believe that it's got a fair amount of gold, but the minion candy is available on Rec. They could use that to their advantage. So Ardent need to be careful if they want to go for this fight. They may just look to steal away some of the jungle camps, try and deny as much golden experience from GankStars Vega as they can. They could potentially also look for a push, but given the position of the minion wave, it could be a little bit bit difficult to look for that objective. But Jar Jar Jack.
Whoa, he is miles away from home right now with nowhere to go, no teammates in the vicinity. Old School, he leaps forward, can't quite get the kill. Jar Jar Jack, he is juking all over the place right now, but in the end, he is going to go down. A star for effort, but unfortunately a D for death.
So right there, Jar Jar Jack recognized that they needed to get an advantage off of the kill that they previously got. So they looked to go for the counter jungle, but he had no follow-up because both Asus Persona and Whelmer were looking to shove the lane up in the top lane. Because of that, he was alone trying to steal some of the back camps. GankStars Vega recognized that this was going on, so they collapsed on him. They're able to pick up the kill, but because of some fantastic mechanical play coming out from Jar Jar Jack, he doesn't come out empty-handed. He's still able to steal away some of the camps, and that means that the goal difference between the two teams is still very close. So very nice plays coming out from Jar Jar Jack.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see as this game develops who's able to actually come ahead in these fights, because right now we're not really seeing full-blown 3 versus 3 team fights. We are just seeing these skirmishes, these picks, these catches. That was going to be an immense payout collected for the side of GankStars. So right now, it's hard for Ardent Axiom to really find areas of the map to pressure. It maybe isn't even worth it for them to go to the gold mine.
It's certainly, it's a little bit surprising, to be honest, considering they have the stronger composition at this stage in the game. Oh, how Old School has been caught.
Oh, he is going to be able to jump over the wall, actually, though. Enter the fray, getting him right out of the fray, back towards the safety of his turrets. Wrecked, hovering around in that bush, might actually pop the gauntlet just for the defensive capabilities there. Fuji not close enough to be of too much use and actually help them in the fight. He's hovering around the gold mine right now, just making sure that they don't get flanked here. Does need to be careful, though, not to get caught by an afterburn. He's going to back off.
Yeah, so we can see right now, GankStars looking to get a couple more items. You can see the Shatter Glass has now been picked up for Fuji, so he's going to start hurting coming into these next few team fights. And it does look like Ardent Axiom looking to try and set up a shove onto the top turret. But Fuji and Old School immediately going to rotate around, clear that minion wave out, and that should be fairly easy for them. So hang on though, a fight is kicking off.
Oh, that's going to be the last verse coming in from Whelmer. Wrecked is very far into the back line right now, but the Dragon's Breath follows up. Look at the damage actually being put onto the back line of Ardent Axiom. Old School is going to get a good red mist off, and Wrecked, by virtue of his teammates being so threatening, is able to get on out of there. Ardent Axiom suffering a decent chunk of their health off the back of that, but they still have a lot of their key abilities. They didn't burn a great deal in that fight.
Yeah, the Verse of Judgment was used right at the start of the fight, but he wasn't actually able to stun anyone up, so it wasn't a great way for Ardent Axiom to actually go for that fight. But what was really impressive to me was this, oh, hang on, Whelmer!
Oh, Whelmer, Old School is putting down a decent chunk of damage onto him right now. Gonna be able to back out from that fight. I don't know if Jar Jar Jack should come in from the side here. Look at how much he's taking right off the bat. They try and get to Fuji. They can't find him, though. And now Ardent Axiom, yet again, denied in the engagement that they were looking for. They're going to have to back off.
Yeah, that was a very back-and-forth exchange. Neither team really getting onto the target that they wanted. One thing I really wanted to mention was notice this triple Fountain of Renewal that is coming out from Ardent Axiom. They recognize that GankStars are running a very sustained sort of damage composition. It's very much damage over time, and if you can actually manage these Fountain of Renewals...
Fuji, this is a bad spot to be in. The Afterburn comes through. He goes down. Ardent Axiom find themselves a kill, but now Rex here. Old School wants to go and look at the red mist onto both of them. He is going to get himself a double kill. Very well played by GankStars Vega to get a little bit back from that loss they had earlier on.
What a fantastic red mist coming out from Old School. They just grouped up for him. The gauntlet went down. There was no way for Ardent Axiom to get out of that situation. And Old School was like, yeah, I'll take that. And as the sign suggests in front of me, they definitely got schooled by Old School right there.
Yeah, that was a very well played fight from GankStars. They're sitting at 5-2 in the kills right now. About 1,300, 400 gold in the lead. They've been building up very slowly, but surely.
Yeah, they certainly have noticed now. Old School has completed the Sorrow Blade, completed the Shiver Steel, so it's going to be so much easier for Old School to stick onto those targets. Whelmer will do a decent job of trying to peel Old School off of their backline and doing a good job of kiting him around. But considering now that he's got that completed, as well as all the shield that he's been managed to build up, I think it's going to be very tough for the side of Ardent Axiom to come out ahead in these fights. We talked about how the difference in the scaling of these two compositions, and I feel like Ardent Axiom just didn't use the power spike advantage that they had when they could.
Ace's Persona just picked up a weapon infusion, I believe, and that might be a signal that they are tired of waiting around and letting GankStars just disengage whenever they want. They want to try and find some kind of a fight. It's tough for them, though. If they jump onto Fuji, it gives a big opportunity for Old School to just get that AoE down.
It definitely does, and that's going to be another immense gold payout going over to GankStars Vega. Ardent Axiom have had no control over this gold mine whatsoever. That major lack of vision, heavily going in the favor of GankStars, has really made it difficult for Ardent to make these rotational plays, look to set up picks, and it's simply been a matter of GankStars slowly but surely gaining control over the map and forcing Ardent Axiom to play around them. Right now, Ardent Axiom looking to potentially set up a siege onto this top turret, but GankStars want to try and stop it.
Yeah, they're going to come right in onto Whalmer. The Verse of Judgment goes right as he dies. It doesn't actually land. He falls before it can go down. Ace's Persona going to afterburn right out of that gauntlet, but it's not enough. The slow comes in from the Dragon's Breath. They find another one. GankStars rolling through the Ardent Axiom lineup right now, and that is going to be an easy turret push for their side. Very, very strong play coming out of GankStars.
Very questionable decision-making coming out from Whalmer. He used the Verge of Judgment on the front line.
Jack. He is going to be able to speed out of that one. That was a close call.
Yeah, Jax. You recognize there that GankStars, they got a kill, they got a turret. They wanted to push their advantage even more, so they decided to get some counter jungling down. They didn't realize that Jack was still there. They may have been able to pick another kill up, but weren't quite prepared for it. But coming back to that previous fight, not entirely sure why Whalmer on the front line decided to use that Verse of Judgment then and there. He should have peeled back. He should have allowed Ace's Persona and Jack to be the front line that they are designed to be. They have so many tanky items. Jack should have a fair amount of damage as well. They could trade back and forth if they just set up to a position that would be favorable for them. But so far, GankStars have been dictating these fights.
Correct. He's going in here. Fuji's actually fairly far out of position, but he's able to kite back pretty well. You see all of Ardent Axiom. That is the target they want to go for. They find it this time. Next up, Old School is going to be the focus, but look at the damage he's putting out. He's life-stealing through the red mist. He's turning it around. He gets the triple kill. That was a beautiful play coming out from Old School, and that is why you can't just focus Fuji.
But the problem for them is they needed to focus Fuji, but because he had a beautiful reflex block out from the Koshka ultimate, there was no way that they could collapse down onto him. It took so long to kill him that just as he died, he set up the flaming goop. That was doing so much damage on top of the red mist, with Rex just providing so much support for Old School. That was a beautifully executed team fight from GankStars Vega. They are so well coordinated in these fights, and they are running away with this game. Very impressive performance so far.
Yeah, I have to admit, we were a little bit worried, given the last performance on live that GankStars had, if they were going to be able to show up in a big way here. But man, they are just playing off the energy of the crowd, it feels like, because Old School is just following the orders of the signs that we're seeing.
They certainly are, and what a tough time for them. The Ardent Axiom still have an opportunity. This is a best-of-3 series, so even if they fall down in this game, they still have another opportunity to come back in the next two. The biggest problem for them, I feel, is that at this point, their composition has been outscaled. It's going to be so difficult for them to deal with the damage from Old School and Fuji, and it's a tough time for them. Look at this. The Serpent's Mask now completed for Old School. Sorrow Blade and the Shiver Steel with an Aegis. Level 12. What are you going to do? I mean, Old School is really showing these guys how it's done.
The thing is as well, I mean, you saw how close but yet far Ardent were in that last fight to taking him down. The Red Mist just let him heal up so much. And without the appropriate crowd control to stop Old School from doing what he wants, it just seems impossible for Ardent Axiom to actually take a good fight. Right now, Ardent, this is the problem, though. They're forced to. You know, GankStars, they can freeze the lane because they've got the minion mine taken on Ardent Axiom and just make them go for an engagement. Speaking of which, we're seeing one right now, but look at the damage immediately onto Whalmer. He gets the Verse of Judgment off this time, but the gauntlet is thrown down and Fuji's outside of it. He's kiting back. He is able to live through Jack's damage. This is a huge fight for GankStars, one of many this game. Ace's Persona, he does get a good knockback onto Old School, trying to just buy time right now. He is certainly still going to be falling eventually, though.
You can see why Fuji is known as one of the most talented Scarf players in NA. He kited a Koshka so beautifully. He doesn't even have a Frostburn yet, and he just stood at the back line. His positioning was fantastic. In the 1v1, he was able to land all of his abilities, and that set up so nicely for Old School to get the red mist down, use his Into the Fray, and just do so much damage onto the back line. Very impressive performance from GankStars Vega, and I just come back to it again. Their coordination, their execution of these team fights is outstanding. Very impressive performance of their first game of this whole tournament.
Yeah, and I just want to point out one more thing about Fuji. He's picked up this Crucible, and he's using it perfectly. It seems like every single fight, the big crowd control skills from Ardent and Axiom just aren't finding their target. This buys time for Old School to do the damage like we were talking about earlier, and Ardent just don't seem to be able to crack that defense.
This is it, see, because of the number, there's 2 Crucibles on the side of Giants Vega, meaning that the moment his reflex block is down, he still has another way to cleanse off those crowd controls. But hang on a second, because it does look like GankStars Vega looking for another fight.
Yeah, they're finding some good poke. Whalmer tries to go in, maybe land a good burst of Judgment. He is going to survive for now, but look at Fuji. He's actually kiting through the enemy team back to their base. He gets 1. He finds 2 Old School. He might actually get a triple kill here. Fuji steals it away. 16 kills to 4 right now. GankStars, they want to close this one out.
They certainly do, and that pretty much has been the story of this game. Rek's going to throw down the gauntlet just to signify how dominant they have been in this first game. They executed their team composition properly. They knew exactly how to play these fights. They itemized very, very well, and they're going to take this first game of the series.
Beautiful play coming out of GankStars. I'm super impressed with their debut performance at the live finals. Ardent Axiom, they had moment